G'day, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Mindful Men podcast. My name is Simon Rennie, and I'm the man behind Mindful Men. I'm really excited today. I've got Jimmy Vaughan from the UK. How you going, Jimmy?
Sound, mate. Sound.
That's good. Thanks so much for coming on. I really do appreciate your time. Obviously, the time difference is a bit challenging to navigate between Australia and the UK, but we've done it. We're here. Now, Jimmy, you're a TEDx speaker. You're a peer mentor, and you're the man behind Jims Stop the Stigma. We connected through Instagrams, and I love seeing your content online. It's really good, really positive.
Thank you.
And it's really strengths-based as well. So it comes from a place of hurt. And we'll talk a bit about that today. But before we get into today's episode, because we are talking about something that's quite a heavy topic for some people, and we're going to be talking about child sexual abuse. So if there's anybody that is listening online that thinks that this might trigger them in any way, by all means, feel free to skip this episode. But if you do stick around and something triggers you, make sure that you reach out to your supports, whether or not they're a friend or family or a mental health support, doctor or whoever. So I just wanted to say that off the front, just because we sometimes talk about a bit of heavy stuff on this podcast. So thanks for joining me, Jimmy. The Mindful Men podcast is all about opening up conversations for boys and men to talk about things that they might be struggling with or maybe struggled with in the past. The idea is around that we become a bit more mindful of who we are as people, whether or not it's something that's happened to us or something that's happened to somebody else. And we'll be talking about your story today. But the idea is just to open up conversations so that boys and men can feel comfortable about getting vulnerable and being okay with not being okay. So I'd like to start off with finding out a bit more about my guests. So Jimmy, if you wouldn't mind telling us a bit about yourself, where you grew up and where you live and what you do, family, work, and all that type of stuff.
Well, I'm Jimmy Vaughan. I'm 47. I work for Bradford Council. I drive bin wagons or garbage trucks or whatever it's called over your neck of woods. I'm a dad. I've got a little lad, 7-year-old. He plays rugby. I volunteer with Keithley Albion as a rugby. And I do my Jims Stop the Stigma. I volunteer for Missing Peace as a peer support facilitator. I do podcasts, radio interviews, whatever people want me to do. I know that keeping things in is very self-destructive. I found that out myself when I went down the drugs route, the drink route, the fighting, getting in trouble with law, the self-harm, the risk-taking behaviours. I've been through it all, and I know that none of it works. It's too self-destructive. So I started out in 2014, starting to support folk then. I had my own organisation that I did with a couple of lads, and I left and then joined Missing Peace.
Yeah.
And here we are today. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. I live in Keighley, West Yorkshire, just outside Bradford, north of England. And it's just, that's about it.
Yeah, and you said you've got a 7-year-old boy who plays rugby?
Yeah, rugby league.
Yeah, how does he go with that? He's doing well?
He loves it. Yeah, he loves it. Playing like a year below, well, a year above, sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, he enjoys it. It's a good set of lads. Yeah,
and do you follow rugby yourself?
Not so much, no. I used to be a big football fan, a Leeds United fan.
Yep.
They survived yesterday, the last game of the season. But I don't really follow much nowadays. It's, when it comes to rugby, I don't mind being there and watching the kids and stuff like that, but I couldn't sit there for 80 minutes. No. Same with football nowadays. I used to go and watch football years ago, but I couldn't see myself sitting through a full 90 minutes now.
I don't think I could physically sit through a full 90 minutes these days I've got the two little ones, the 2 and a 5-year-old, and I think by half time I'm falling asleep.
I've tried sitting Henry through games on telly, and after 10 minutes he's bored. So we end up doing something, so I hardly watch it anymore.
Yeah. So Leeds they've survived, have they?
Yeah, last game of the season.
Yeah.
it was them or Burnley to go down, and Burnley lost and Leeds won. It just survived in Premiership for another year.
Yeah, I watched the A-League over here, so the men's soccer over here, and my team's just been bowed out of the final. So if they won yesterday, they would have gone into the grand final next week. So, but not a bad season. We started off 5-0, so it was nice to get into the finals in the end. And then now it's the off season, so we'll see all of our young fellas nick off to the UK, or they'll go over to Asia or somewhere. So we'll start all over again, rebuilding every 2 years. But that's Australian soccer for you. So so I mentioned before that you're a TEDx talker, and TEDx is a great resource for stories like yourself and stories around the world. And I mean, I'd never even heard of TEDx until a couple of years ago when I was doing my uni degree. So first of all, before we get into the content of the TEDx, what's it like to be a TEDx talker? I've never spoken to one before.
You could tell I was nervous when I was doing it. Kept having to bring my son back in, and I've wanted to do one for 8 years.
Yeah.
And then opportunity arose. We're doing one in my local town, in my hometown, and when I was interviewed to do one, I just couldn't believe it. That, I'm going to do a TEDx. And TEDx is one of them things where you've either never heard of it and you've no idea what it is, or you've heard of it and you're really excited about it. There's nothing in between.
Yeah.
You either know it or you don't.
Yeah. Well, that's right. Yeah.
It's just, what is it? To, wow, I can't believe it. It's just that or that.
And I think it even accelerated when COVID hit, because I remember when COVID hit, we couldn't do anything. And like even work training and so forth, they're like, oh, just go watch a few TEDx's. So it's been a great introduction to it. And as I said, it's got some great stories, but I'd love to hear your story now. So you're a survivor of childhood sexual abuse.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to go too deep into it. I want you to feel comfortable with what you say. So I'm not going to grill you about what happened, but I'll pass it over to you to tell your story and what happened and how it impacted you as a child and then growing up as well.
Well, I was a teenager when it happened. The Royal Marines come to school and they give a talk because we were coming up to GCSE years, the exams, and they come in to give a talk. And I really liked what they said. But the local Royal Marine cadets were 20 miles away in Leeds. So with Marines, it's been, quite water-based. So, well, 3 cadets, thought I'll just join them. But the guy in charge, the president, turned out to be a paedophile, and he groomed me at 14.
Mm-hmm.
And it went on from there. Groomed and abused. I left at 16 and then fell into the trap of another one. And that went on for quite a number of years. It was tough. I ended up going down a very dark route. The anger inside me was just unbelievable. I had no way controlling it. I ended up kind of shutting down, just completely blank. I either laughed uncontrollably or was so angry.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing in between. Everything was black and white. And it went on like that for a number of years. Got to my 20s, and the drugs were starting to phase out, but I was still drinking a lot. It was like I had to go to the pub every day. Not even if I just had 1 or 2, I had to go every day. It wasn't until I went on for years of that. And then when I started working a lot of late, finishing at 10:30 at night, looking for counsel, and then I'd just hit the wine then.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be just drinking wine till 1, 2 in the morning, but I didn't start work again till 2 in the afternoon. So it went on like that. It went till about 2009, 2010, when I was with my partner. Told her what had gone off. And she told me I needed to report it. So I reported it. It was weird because it was imagine you've got a nightmare at the back of your head that you don't know if it's true or not. Then all of a sudden, it is. And all these emotions and all these things, what you'd had locked away since you were a teenager, all come to the front of your brain. Ended up on sick from work, ended up on antidepressants, went for counselling, went for a lot of therapy, started self-harming again, I started drinking heavily again. And it went on from there. I went to a lovely place called Mosaic 2 in Bradford, which was a counselling service designed for survivors. Sadly closed down now. That was good. But I realised that I could talk about it till cows come home, but it didn't do anything with the emotions. You know, because with flashbacks. So I ended up seeing 3 psychiatrists, and one of them diagnosed me with borderline personality disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder. Although some people have mentioned it could be complex post-traumatic stress disorder, because we trauma was so much, and it wasn't just one thing, there was so much of it. And I ended up finding a therapist who did EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprogramming, I think it's called.
Yep.
And that deals with flashbacks, PTSD, emotions, and it moves it from one side of the brain to other. And I had a number of sessions of that, and it just, like a light switch, so my anger levels dropped.
Yeah.
My flashbacks went from 40, 50 a day to between 5 and 10, which I can handle.
Wow.
You know, it was amazing, absolutely amazing. I know it's not a one size fits all. What works for one may not work for another, but I tried pretty much everything. And EMDR as products, I still struggle. I still have my dark days. It's like riding crest of a ship trying to find a shore. You know, you're up, down, up, down. But I know that when I've hit the deck, I know I'm coming back up again. Don't know when. It can be a day, it can be a couple of days, it can be a week. But I know that I'm going to come up again. I still have the suicidal thoughts. I had a bad day last week, but I got triggered really badly the week before, and I was struggling with it. But that's all part of BPD. I live on my own. I have my lads each stays a couple of days a week, and that keeps me on a level, keeps me calm.
Yeah.
I get lonely at times, but I prefer it because I've only got to rely on myself, because trust is a massive issue for me as well. So I've only got to rely on me. I don't have to worry about anybody else. That's about it. And of course, the TEDx come along. I've been on TV 3 times talking my story and mental health. I've done many radio shows and newspaper articles. And then TEDx come along. I'm like, wow. It was unbelievable. Great.
How did TEDx actually come about? Did they reach out to you, or were you connected in some way?
The lad I volunteer for, Nick, at Missing Peace, I was at his missus's 40th, and he come down and went, "You never guess what, Jimmy, I'm doing a TEDx." So I swore at him. And if he watches this, he'll be laughing at this point. I said, "I've wanted to do one of them for years, and then you come all up, Jimmy, I'm doing a TEDx." So I swore at him again.
Did he say, "What's that?"
He said, "Leave it with me." And he spoke with the guy who was doing it, and we had an interview. Did me and this fella. He said, "Yeah, I'd love to have you on, Jimmy." So there were a multitude of different people, some fascinating subjects. It was brilliant, mate. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's a really good watch. I watched it just before we jumped online again, and it's short and sweet, but it's just perfect. I think it's a great watch, and I'll be certain to put the link in the show notes for this as well, to share it around. So I want to take you back to 14 to 16 and when it all happened. And you mentioned a bit about kind of suppressing it as well. Like, when it was all happening, did you tell anybody that was going on, or you just bottled it all up and kept it to yourself?
Yeah, bottled it up, kept it to myself. It's who'd believe you anyway?
Yeah.
And I remember the second one saying that if I ever said, "Oh, no one would believe me."
Mm.
I remember him saying that. They both passed away now. But he was never convicted. 1 second, the police, the CPS decided not to run with it. But the first one got 8 years.
Yeah.
They found another 4 lads with sea cadet guy, going back from 60s, I think. And they found 60s, 70s, none from 80s, then us from 90s. So there were 5 in total. Yeah. No, I didn't tell anybody. But I remember someone saying to me that it was like flicking a switch. I just changed overnight. I'd gone from this very nice, polite lad to a complete turnaround. And it was like overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to believe it's over 30 years ago now.
Mm. And when you that light switch, did it impact some of the relationships around you, like with your mates or
Yeah.
with your family?
I've still got same mates now I've had since then. They stuck around and listened to me when I needed to rant over the last few years. Some good lads and lasses. Yeah, I lost some mates, lost some family members, but it is what it is. You know, the ones who are meant to be there are there, aren't they?
Yeah. I think that's important. Yeah, like it's the inner circle that we have around us when we're going through a trauma or mental illness and so forth. It's a lot around the solid supports that you have, and the ones that are, as you said, the ones that are meant to be there will be there. Sometimes it's hard to let go of some of them as well, and even if it's close family, but sometimes we have to do that to be well and to walk our own path as well. So you say you went through a bit of a rough period after that, and understandably so, with drinking and drugs and fighting. You find that was your way to kind of process what was happening, or did you kind of go on autopilot mode? Or how would you describe that period?
Oh, bit autopilot-ish. I very much spent it alone. Had a barrier around me.
Yeah.
And nobody were getting in. And it was like that for years. I just went from girlfriend to girlfriend. If we got too close, I moved on to the next one. And it went from that. I didn't let anybody in. Yeah, I won't go into that. What was said then. It was a tough time. It was a tough time. And the after effects of it do last a lifetime. But the way it took me dying day. But it's like I said on my TedX, so I prefer to walk outside of it than let it consume me.
Yeah. And that was a really powerful message that came from that TEDx, was around using your hurt and pain and journey to, I guess, and to inspire other guys to come forward, or women as well, to come forward and perhaps share their experiences or seek help or report it to authorities. And I think that's a really powerful thing that you're doing. And that's why I love Jims Stop the Stigma, because it talks to that kind of stuff. And I think the more that we can get guys particularly talking about what's happening to us mentally, physically as well, the more we can encourage, because guys bottle it up. I mean, as you said, you bottled it up for years, and I myself bottled it up for my mental illness for over 20 years as well, before I started opening up and trying to find ways to get better. And so it's really powerful thing that you're doing, I think. And as hard as it might be, and you mentioned having a rough patch last week, and I'd love to see you keep going with this type of work. It's really valuable for our community.
Thank you. It's good how we can all connect as well.
Yeah.
Like opposite ends of the world, and here we are having a conversation about mental health. And I've done a couple with Australia. I speak with people in New Zealand, Africa, America. You know, social media used properly can really unite the world, but it can be abused really easily as well.
Definitely. And that's what I've loved about, setting up Mindful Men and now doing the podcast as well, to hear these stories from across the world. It's a wonderful connector, I think.
Yeah.
And it's, as you said, it's a powerful tool. So at what point you talked about you were talking to your partner and about what happened, and she encouraged you to report it. Was this the first time you started talking about it, or did that kind of seed happen a little bit before that?
It had happened a few times before that, usually when I was absolutely legless.
Mm-hmm.
Always loosened my lips, did that.
Yeah.
But it started coming out, I said mid-20s, occasionally. But nobody really knew how to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's sort of thing you read in papers, you know, you see on news, you don't expect somebody you know to come out with it.
Mm.
But after I'd reported it, I was surprised by how many people come up to me and said, you know, it happened to me too, Jimmy. Happened to me too, Jimmy. There were loads, men and women.
Mm.
And some people I know, well, I knew really well. So yeah, I was surprised just how frequent it happened to different people.
Yeah. And did it feel good talking about it?
No, well, yes and no. I was glad to finally open my mouth about it, but there's like an embarrassment stigma surrounding it.
Yeah.
And that's what stops a lot of men and women talking about it, is that embarrassment. Some people shook my bit hand. Some people couldn't look me in the face. It's
Yeah.
just how it is. But what's news one day is past history next.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we all talk openly about it now, and whenever anybody wants to hear my stories, can hear it.
Yeah. We had a Royal Commission here in 2017 around institutional responses to child abuse. And a lot of these types of stories came out in Australian media over the last few years. I think there's a lot of power in what you're saying to help people come forward. And I'm really thankful for you talking about it, because I can imagine a hard topic to talk about for you. But what makes you keep talking about it? Like, does it get easier the more you talk about it? You've been on podcasts, you've been on TedX. What drives you to be out in the media about it?
I know what I was like. I remember what I was like in my teenage years, in my 20s, in my 30s. I don't want anybody else to go through that,
Yep.
male or female. So I talk about it openly in the hope that that one person sees it and thinks, you know what, he's right.
Yep.
I need to sort myself out. And there's three so far. 3 paedophiles been sent to prison after someone has seen my story, and range from local to up north. So yeah, it does work.
Yeah.
And the more we talk about the mental health, the more we talk about the surviving of the child abuse, more people will talk openly about it. And the more people who talk openly about it, I'm hoping anyway, the less it'll happen, because people will speak up. As soon as I start getting groomed, they'll recognise the signs and say something before it gets to the point of no return.
Yeah.
And that's why I do it.
Yeah. Because it happened within the cadets type scenario. Did it change your perception of that kind of institution?
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, because I wanted to be a soldier. I wanted to be a soldier from a young age, and then when Marines come along, so yeah, that's for me, is that. So it completely ruined my dream. It did.
Yeah.
I tried joining Territorial Army, but I was too much of a mess. I was just doing drugs too much, and yeah, I tried joining the army again, and I was a mess. They took one look at me and says, "Keep off drugs for 3 months and come back." And I couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't even do a week, let alone a month. Yeah. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So you got a 7-year-old son. Does he know much about what's happened, or have you ever spoken to him about it?
No, I haven't. No, he's a bit young yet. Once he gets older, I'll probably sit him down, because I'd rather him hear it from me than, because all he has to do is Google my name.
Yeah. Watch a few TEDx's.
Yeah, it all comes up. So, so I'd rather him hear it from me than anybody else.
Yeah.
But I'll wait till he's a bit older.
And do you ever have a fear that he might experience something similar to that, what you've experienced?
I have a massive fear of it,
Yeah.
but I know that when it happened to me, it was early 90s, different era.
Yeah.
It's more talked about now. There's more safety things in place at these institutions, and yeah, so I do have a fear of it, and I'm scared of when I reach the age of he reaches the age of 14,
Mm-hmm.
how I will react to that.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
will I get overprotective? Will I not let him go anywhere? I
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of these thoughts in my head.
And how do you process that?
I just shove it to the back of my mind because he's only 7. But each year,
Yeah.
and I know it's getting closer to it. But yeah, I'll have to see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned EDMR. Did I say that right?
EMDR,
Yeah.
EMDR.
Sounds like it's been a massive help for you. You're saying that you're
Yeah.
going through like 50 or so flashbacks to 5 to 10, which is fantastic. So talk us through, like, when you do get a flashback, what does it feel like? Like, what do you do to cope through that?
I swear at it.
Mm-hmm.
I have like a small tick. You know,
Yeah.
like you have where you'll know what ticks are, won't you?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I have to tell it to go away, unworldly words,
Yeah.
and it goes, it helps. But like I said before, when you bury the traumatic event, you bury emotions with it. So when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to the front, you get the emotions with it as well, and the sight, the smell, the sound,
Yeah.
anything can take you right back to that place again.
Yeah.
And to be able to process that. If I remember rightly, it was an American woman who invented EMDR,
Mm-hmm.
and she had something traumatic happen to her, and she realised as she was walking through these woods, as her eyes darted from left to right, it was getting less traumatic in her head. And
Yeah.
that what started it, processes it, moves it, but it also takes the emotions with it. So although I still get angry at times, like everybody does, but nowhere near what I used to be.
Yeah.
Nowhere
Yeah.
near.
And do you still have a glass of wine every now and then, or you cut that out of your
Yeah,
life?
I live by 2 rules. I don't drink when I'm working,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't drink when I've got Henry.
Yeah.
So that leaves it to 2 nights a week.
Yeah.
So that keeps me on a level, does that then?
Wonderful. And what's some of the other healthy things that you're doing to cope these days and keep yourself well?
Well, healthy or unhealthy? I can't stop eating. I do a lot of walking.
Yeah.
But I live in West Yorkshire, and we've got some of the best countryside in England, 5 minutes away from my house.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do a lot of walking in countryside. I just love the countryside. I love my garden.
Yep.
Love being outdoors, fresh air, and I'm getting the same way. We're always out and about, visiting spots and going for walks and taking bikes out, and
Yeah.
yeah, always out and about.
Awesome. That sounds great. I love getting out in my garden as well. When my mind's racing with my own OCD and anxiety, getting out to my garden, just feeling the dirt in my fingers and pulling, even if it's just pulling weeds out or mowing the lawn or anything like that, the smell of the cut grass is just really grounds me in that moment. And the same with walking. When I'm walking, sometimes I'm grabbing leaves off trees or bushes and just feeling it in my hand, crunching it in my hands and noticing that feeling and smells around me. And it's like nature is such a powerful tool that the more we can get out and the vitamin D that comes out with being in the sun and so forth, just
Sun. I'm in England, mate.
whatever can poke through the clouds. Just it can just help so much, and it's such an easy, free thing to do that a lot of people kind of disregard. When we're going through mental illness, we could lock ourselves inside very easily. But to get out and about as part of a recovery path, and it's going to look different for everybody, whether it's riding a bike or walking or gardening or whatever. It's good that you've got some coping techniques there that keep you grounded. But now I want to talk a bit about your peer support work. And you're at Missing Piece at the moment. I believe you run a few different peer support groups, do you?
2 groups.
Yeah.
There's one for men's mental health every Tuesday evening,
Yep.
and we do it via Zoom as well. So if anybody, even from your neck of woods, wants to join us, it might be about 3 o'clock in the morning, like, but
not for me, but
but and I do, that's for men's mental health, and on a Wednesday every fortnight I do a male survivors peer support group, and that's face to face in Zoom as well.
Yeah.
It's just because the abuse survivors one, just having people in a room together, knowing you don't have to talk about it,
Mm-hmm.
but knowing that you're in a room with other people who've been through it makes you feel less alone.
Yeah.
And when you go to a normal peer support group, you might feel uncomfortable if you want to talk about it, because the people won't understand it, and some might get shocked, and so if that's why I wanted to do one like that, so everybody in that room has a connection,
Yeah.
even if we don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. You mentioned a really good thing there around, so when we're experiencing mental illness, trauma, traumatic events, we can often feel alone, feel like we're the only ones in the world going through this particular issue or feelings and so forth. But you bringing people together in that kind of collective where all of a sudden the world feels less lonely is a really good thing. How well has it been received?
Good. I've been doing it since 2019. I've been doing it since might be last August with Missing Peace. But yeah, it's well received and the lads enjoy it.
Talk us through what a session might look like for someone who hasn't been to one before that might be interested.
This, but where do we know?
Yeah, wonderful.
It's as simple as that.
Easy.
Yeah, it is. And it's getting techniques as well, because one person might have tried something what that person never has.
Yeah.
So it's all about getting the connections in and helping each other and supporting each other. And it's brilliant. You become like a little family.
That's great. And what about the mental health peer group as well? Very similar?
Same. Yeah, exactly the same. It's well received and it's brilliant. And it teaches people that it is okay to talk.
That's right.
And nobody's ridiculed. Nobody takes mick. We have a laugh. I'll throw a few one-liners in. And
I can imagine.
yeah, a few crap dad jokes and stuff like that. But it's good.
Yeah.
It's good. And lads come and just talk for 2 hours just to get everything out and then go again.
Yeah.
And you never see them again because they've done it. They've done what they needed to do.
Yeah.
And that's the power of it. That's the power of words. That's the power of speaking. It's just knowing, you know, in and amongst other people who understand.
Mm-hmm.
And it can change somebody's life.
Yeah.
And it has. I've seen many lives over the years. It's brilliant.
Yeah. And do you see many people keep coming back, or they come in for one session and you don't see them again?
I can't say who comes and who don't, but it's good. It works. And get one set up, you'll love it.
Yeah. I might jump on one of yours one day. Might have to have a few coffees at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Well, it's 7 o'clock over there, isn't it?
It is at 7:40 now. Yeah, almost 8 o'clock. So
about 9 hours in front of us, aren't
you? Yeah.
7, 4 in the morning.
That's when my 5-year-old's getting up almost. And the missus, I just nudge her and she gets up at that time. Oh, so what's next for you, Jimmy? Like you're TEDx superstar. You got the peer groups going. Thinking ahead, next say 12 months and 5 years, 10 years. Where can you take Jims Stop the Stigma next?
I have no idea. I just take each day as it comes.
Yeah.
If I get asked to do stuff or connect with people for podcasts and all. I'll just carry on with that, and yeah, I'll just take it as it comes.
Could you see yourself becoming a rugby league coach for your son?
No.
No.
I'm one of them dads kicking everybody up backside. It's hard enough just do it first aid. But yeah, I enjoy it though. They're a good, fantastic group of Keighley Albion.
Yeah.
Very family orientated, and they have from the ants at like 4 and 5 year old going right through to open age.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So it's a huge local club, and they do fantastic.
That's
Brilliant.
great. That's great. I'll let you go soon, but I've got a couple more questions for you. So I'm interested to hear, what would your advice be to someone who either has experienced, childhood sexual abuse, or even just mental health on its own, not related to sexual abuse or anything like that, but they're struggling to speak up and get some help? What's some advice that you could perhaps give from your own experience or the experiences of the people that you support that might help them make that phone call to Missing Peace, or touch base with you on Instagram or anything like that?
Well, us at Missing Peace and myself at Jims Stop the Stigma know what it's like. We know what it's like to be in the zone. We know what it's like to not be able to talk.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to chat, if you want to get stuff off your chest, if you want to get some advice on how to report or don't like that, message me at Jims Stop the Stigma, message Nick and Emma at Missing Peace, Wellbeing and Support, and we'll listen. But the first thing what anybody should do is go to the GP.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the doctors. As hard as it is, open up to them, because they could open some very good doors for you.
Yeah.
To get peer support, to get therapy, even if it's just antidepressants, what you need for the short term,
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. See your GP.
Yeah, that's great advice. I remember going to see my GP the first time I opened up at Mountain Mental Health, and I was actually scared about meds. You talk a bit about medication just then. I was scared about going on meds. I thought, I don't want to be one of those people that are on meds for the rest of my life. And 10 years, it's actually 10 years this year it's been since I went and saw that GP, and I'm still on meds, and I'm actually better. I'm okay. I have my peaks and troughs as well. It's like a roller coaster ride. But one of the best things I did was go and speak to my GP, and that set me on my pathway as well, of talking to psychologists and counsellors, psychiatrists. I've seen a mental health social worker. I love that connection with your GP. It's so easy. It's so local. They're away from your family and your friends, so it's very private as well.
And what gets said in the room doesn't leave.
Yeah,
unless you're
right.
a danger to yourself or others.
Yeah,
everything you say is confidential.
Yeah, 100%. That's right. And then go from there. And the recovery pathway on any of these types of journeys is unique to us as well. So your story and your journey is going to be a completely different road that I'm going to walk in my pathway as well. So it takes as long as it takes as well. But yeah, it's great having people like yourself out there talking about this type of stuff. That's very challenging, very traumatic, but it's also grounded in a lot of strength and resilience and perseverance, and you are doing amazing things. So thank you as another bloke on the other side of the world. Thanks for sharing your story and coming on the podcast today. But before I let you go, I'll get you to plug something. So I'll have the links to the Jims Stop the Stigma in the show notes and the TEDx. But what's something else at the moment that you might be watching or listening to or reading or engaging with that you'd love to share and share that kind of resource with the listeners that are listening in today?
Well, I'll give a shout out to Men of Worth Project CIC.
Yeah.
They're on Facebook, so if anybody wants to check out what they do, because what they do is fantastic.
Yeah.
Keeping the memories of the World War I soldiers alive. Missing Peace, Wellbeing and Support. They're on Facebook, Instagram. Check them out. And that's about it, really. I've never been asked to do this before, so I don't know what to plug.
Whatever makes you feel good,
That's fresh air. Get sent out in the wilderness. Have go for a walk.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you're, because I know some people can be agoraphobic and can't leave the house.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been like that in my darkest depression. I couldn't even open my curtains. I wouldn't get dressed for days on end. And watch YouTube, funny vids, TedX's.
TedX's, I was just about to say.
TedX's. Yeah, TedX's. There's a multitude, there's millions and millions of videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
There'll be something you like.
Yeah.
And then just watch it, cheer yourself up, you know. Just laughing, you know, is good for the soul. And I do a lot of that.
You do. I've laughed more in this podcast than I have in any podcast before. So thank you so much for that. And I can imagine it'd be like in your peer support groups as well, you know, a good chuckle as well. So
yeah.
Wonderful.
That was its moment.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. I do really appreciate your time today. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. I'm about to head to bed soon. Although it's not 3 o'clock, it's only 8 o'clock. And yes, I go to bed at 8 o'clock.
Hey, I do when I'm looking. So.
But yeah, thanks so much, Jimmy. I really do appreciate it. And thanks for your time.
Thanks very much for that.
Wonderful.
Cheers.
If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure that you like it and leave a comment and then share it with your mates. Also, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a moment of future episodes to come.